My name is Callista Wynne, 33 years old. The morning came on soft and ordinary, the kind of light that slips through kitchen blinds like a promise. Gina hummed at the table, her 4-year-old legs swinging, curls bouncing as she colored a princess dress with the seriousness of a surgeon. 2 cookies? She bargained without looking up. 2, I said, tucking them into her lunchbox. Any more, and your tummy will file a complaint. Ordinary. That word used to be the shape of my happiness. The scent of fresh coffee, the tiny squeak in the front hinge Enzo kept meaning to oil, the pink plastic cup Gina insisted made water taste better. But ordinariness is fragile. It shatters fast. Mommy, I forgot something. Gina slid down, her socks whispering over the wood floor. A minute later, she returned, hugging a manila folder to her chest like a secret treasure. Daddy left this in my playroom. He said it was important, but I think he forgot. Enzo doesn't forget, I thought, and even before I opened it, my mouth went dry. He is meticulous about what belongs where. Work at work, home at home. I took the folder. Did Daddy say it was for me? He was on the phone, she said, brow crinkling. He said bad words, so I closed my eyes extra hard. I smiled because that is what mothers do when their ground begins to tilt. Thank you for being brave, I murmured, and clicked the clasp. Bank statements first. So many they made a small deck, the edges smudged with handling. Transfers in neat, hungry lines. Funds easing out of our joint accounts into ones I did not recognize, all bearing my name in a signature that wasn't mine. My inheritance from Grandma Rose, $3 million that was supposed to be untouchable, was bleeding out in transactions arranged like a quiet parade. My coffee mug slipped from my hand and hit the tile. Gina jumped, pencils clattering. It's okay, I said, kneeling, my voice floating from somewhere outside my body. Just a spill. But it wasn't just a spill. It was a leak in the hull. Under the statements came printouts of emails, subject lines that turned the room colder. The plan is working perfectly. After dinner tonight. Soon we'll be together permanently. A name I did not know threaded through them like a stain. Wilma Leonardo. There were phrases that didn't need translation. She suspects nothing. Power of attorney. Updated will. Each one a finger pressed against my windpipe. Mommy, Gina's voice was small, testing the air. Are you mad? No, I said, though the word trembled. I gathered the papers into a tide that kept breaking. I'm thinking, that's different. I kept going because there was no mercy in stopping. Insurance documents I had never seen with my signature looping obediently where I had never put my hand. A will that left everything to Enzo in the unlikely event of my passing. Photos of my signature pasted into places I'd never been. Then, on a single sheet, Enzo's careful script. Anniversary dinner. Rossetti's. Table 12. 8 p.m. Time to finish this. The kitchen shrank around me. The hiss of the kettle, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft scratch of Gina's crayons. Everything sharpened and then fell muffled, as if I ducked my head underwater. I imagined the restaurant's chandeliers and polished silver, imagined my wine glass glinting like a bell, imagined Enzo's hands, hands that had cupped my face, carried our sleeping daughter from the car, stirring something into my drink with a small silver spoon. Gina slid her coloring page toward me. Princesses holding swords, crowns askew. This one is you, she said with fierce pride. You're brave. Am I? I whispered. The question lodged in my throat with the taste of metal. The phone rang. Enzo's name skated across the screen. My hand hovered a breath too long before I answered. Hello? Hey, beautiful. Warm, easy, the tone that used to make my shoulders loosen. Just confirming tonight. 8 o'clock, Rossetti's. Table 12. You'll wear the black dress I love? I stared at the manila folder. Of course, I said, and the lie didn't crack my teeth the way I expected. Looking forward to it. I love you, Callista. I made my mouth say the required words. Hanging up, the kitchen returned in pieces. The cherry stain on the cabinet, the sticker half peeled from the fridge, Gina humming a tune from preschool about a star that twinkles. I met her eyes and smiled because that is what mothers do, learn to sew composure over panic with clumsy, determined stitches. Can we still see Aunt Luna today? She asked, already sliding off her chair, reassured by my practiced calm. Yes, I said. I needed Luna's steady presence. The lavender in her apartment, the way she tilts her head when she is deciding how much truth you can survive. Get your shoes. While Gina wrestled with Velcro, I moved like a ghost through my bedroom, slipping the folder into my tote beneath a sweater. Enzo liked to pretend we lived in a glass house where nothing could hide. Today I became smoke. The car ride was a corridor of half-formed memories. Enzo, on one knee at Rossetti's, the first date Cabernet he insisted paired with everything. The way my grandmother's hands looked the day she signed the trust papers and said, "It's for you and who you become." I had thought she meant comfort. Maybe she meant backbone. Luna opened the door before we knocked. Her apartment smelled like fresh bread and lavender. She took one look at my face and stepped aside without a word. "Hey, wild thing," she told Gina, scooping her up. "I have books that need your expert opinion." When Gina disappeared down the hall in pursuit of an orange cat and a stack of fairy tale picture books, I put the folder on Luna's small kitchen table and opened it. Papers fanned like a wound. I didn't need to dramatize. The numbers and signatures did that for me. As Luna read, the color bled from her face. She sat, then stood, then sat again. "Call the police," she said at last, voice thin and tight. "Right now." "And say what?" I asked. "That I found emails about a plan? That someone forged my signature? That my husband is a liar who knows which vial matches which symptom? They won't act on a future tense. They will ask me to come back after I've been buried." Her hands trembled around the edge of a page. "Cal, this is insane. He's not... Enzo wouldn't he?" I touched the sheet with the restaurant reservation. He wrote the time like it was a ceremony. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they shone with a therapist's compassion and a sister's helpless rage. "Then don't go tonight. Stay here. We'll leave town. He'll try again," I said. The truth settled through me like iron cooling. When I'm not looking, when Gina is in the next room, when running is the most dangerous thing I could do. Silence stretched. From the living room, Gina's voice rose, narrating the fierce bravery of a cardboard princess who saves herself. It would have been funny if none of this were real. "Tell me you have a plan that doesn't end with you in a cell," Luna whispered. I found my reflection in the dark window and barely recognized myself. The woman staring back had the same green eyes, the same hair pulled into a serviceable knot, but something had gone glassy beneath the skin, a clarity that belonged to winter. "I have a plan that ends with Gina having a mother tomorrow morning," I said. "I'm not eager to be a hero. I'm eager to be alive." "You're talking like someone who read her own obituary and decided to edit it." Luna wiped her eyes and found a box of tissues neither of us touched. "What do you need?" "An alibi," I said, each syllable careful. "If anyone asks, we were here all afternoon. We made paper flowers. We cried at a movie. I fell asleep on your couch to the sound of that cat purring." Her laugh broke, then steadied. "That cat doesn't purr. He judges." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I hate this," she said, "but I hate the other outcome more." "Me too." I squeezed back. "I promise you I will not escalate. I will not hunt. I will not become something I can't live with. I will only survive." Gina barreled in, proud as a parade. "We made a purple rose." She tucked the crepe paper bloom behind my ear with grave ceremony. "Now you're a real queen." "Queen of the practical," I said, kissing her forehead. "Gina, you're going to have a sleepover with Aunt Luna tonight. Will there be pancakes in the morning?" "Unethical quantities," Luna said. As evening slid closer, the plan nested inside me like a second heartbeat. I pulled up Rossetti's floor plan on my phone, grainy photos from reviews, a blogger's breathless write-up that included a diagram. Table 12, corner seat, good sightline to the bar. Ladies' room, a short corridor off the main dining area with a view of the corner if you leaned just so. I rehearsed the choreography in my head, the hallway shadow, the timing, the switch. My hands were empty, but felt busy, my mind knitting contingencies. If he pours while I'm seated, if he asks me to toast immediately, if Helena, the waitress with kind eyes, lingers too long. "Promise?" Gina asked as we packed her overnight things. Her eyes were solemn, too knowing for four. "You'll be here when I wake up?" I crouched so our faces were level, my fingers cupping her small, warm cheeks. "Yes," I said, letting the word be a vow I could sign with bone and blood. "I will be here. That is the whole point of tonight." On the ride back to my house to dress, the city looked like a movie set. People holding their own private scripts, unaware mine had been rewritten at the last minute. In the closet, I chose the black dress Enzo loved because camouflage sometimes looks like devotion. I clasped the pearl necklace he gave me on our 5th anniversary. I was playing a part. I would use every prop. When I checked my reflection, the woman in the mirror looked composed, almost elegant. Only my hands betrayed me. I set them flat on the dresser until the trembling passed. In the living room, family photos watched me as if they could vote. I lifted one from our wedding day, stared at the joy I'd once worn like a crown, and put it face down. Enzo texted, "On my way. Can't wait, Bella." I typed back, "Me too." Then I slid the folder into the false bottom of my tote, locked the front door, and stepped into the evening that would try to swallow me and fail. Luna's apartment was always a refuge, the kind of place that smelled like lavender and fresh bread even on bad days. Tonight, it had to become more than that. It had to be a war room. Gina was already curled up in the living room with a blanket and a stack of picture books, her small voice carrying the narration of a brave princess who saved herself. The sound made me both ache and steel my heart. Luna set a mug of coffee in front of me, steam curling upward, and folded her arms across her chest. Her green eyes studied me with the scrutiny of both a sister and a therapist. "Callista," she began carefully, "tell me everything again. Slowly this time." I slid the manila folder onto her table. The edges were already worn from my hands. Bank statements, forged signatures, emails with Wilma Leonardo, whoever she is. And then this, I pulled out the sheet with Enzo's handwriting. Anniversary dinner, Rossetti's. Table 12, 8 p.m., time to finish this. Her breath hitched. Finish this? He actually wrote that? I nodded. My fingers traced the ink grooves like they could cut me. He wants me gone, Luna. Tonight. She pressed her palms against her temples. You need to call the police. Right now. Don't wait until... And tell them what? That my husband is plotting based on love letters and an ominous dinner note? They'll say it's a marital dispute. At best, fraud. They'll send me home and suggest counseling. Her hands dropped, fists forming at her sides. So you're just going to... What? Sit across from him and let him poison you? I leaned forward, lowering my voice. No, I'm going to let him try, and I'm going to make sure he fails. Her chair scraped back as she stood. Callista, you can't be serious. This is insane. He's the father of your child. He stopped being that the moment he decided she'd be better off with my money than my heartbeat. The silence after that was sharp enough to cut. Luna looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe I didn't recognize myself either. But underneath the fear, something colder had taken root. Finally, she whispered, "What are you planning?" I hesitated. Saying it out loud would make it real. He'll bring something, some powder, some vial. He'll pour it into my drink when I'm not looking. I'll see him do it. Then when he leaves the table, I'll switch the glasses. Luna's eyes widened, horror and disbelief battling in her expression. You mean to let him drink it? To kill him? No. I shook my head firmly. I mean to let him experience the consequences of his own plan. If that means his body can't handle it, then that's on him. She paced the kitchen, her bare feet whispering against the tile. This isn't self-defense, Callista. This is entrapment. It's revenge. It's survival, I said, my voice sharp enough to stop her. From the living room, Gina's laughter rang out, high and innocent, like a reminder of what was at stake. Luna froze at the sound, then looked back at me with tears gathering in her eyes. And if you go to prison, what happens to her then? Do you want her to grow up without either parent? She'll have you, I said quietly. Better an aunt who loves her than a father who wanted her mother dead. Luna dropped into the chair across from me, her face pale. You've thought this through, haven't you? Every angle, I admitted. I can't risk him trying again if I run. Tonight is the only chance to end it. Her hands shook as she picked up one of the emails. Soon we'll be together permanently, she read aloud, voice breaking. He wrote this to her, to Wilma. He was planning to kill you for her. Yes. My throat tightened, but no tears came. I'd used them all up earlier. 7 years of marriage reduced to this. She looked at me for a long moment, then finally said, What do you need me to do? Relief crashed through me so suddenly I almost sobbed. Instead, I reached across the table and squeezed her hands. Be my alibi. If anyone asks, we spent the whole afternoon here. We made paper roses, we drank too much coffee, we played with Gina. That's it. No deviations. She swallowed hard. And after tonight, I forced my voice steady. After tonight, Gina and I will be safe. The room fell into a fragile calm. Luna wiped her eyes and tried to joke. You've always been the dramatic one. I managed a small smile. Turns out it pays off. We spent the next hour pretending at normalcy. Gina darted in to show us her paper crafts, her small fingers smudged with glue. She tucked a purple flower into my hair. Now you're a queen, she announced proudly. Thank you, sweetheart, I said, holding her close. A queen needs her princess. As the evening darkened, the weight of what was coming pressed heavier. I studied the floor plan of Rossetti's on my phone, tracing the lines with my finger. Table 12 in the corner, the marble hallway to the restroom, the sightline that would let me watch him without being seen. Each detail etched itself into my memory like choreography. You're sure about this? Luna asked, voice low so Gina wouldn't hear. I'm sure, I said. My pulse was steady for the first time all day. When the time came to leave, Gina clung to me, her small arms wrapped tight. Promise you'll be here tomorrow? I promise, I said, holding her as if the vow itself could build a shield. I kissed her forehead, inhaling the strawberry scent of her shampoo. She pulled back, her brown eyes serious. Like wolves, she whispered, recalling some bedtime story. Exactly like wolves, I answered. As I walked out, Luna followed me to the door. Callista, she said, her hand gripping my arm. If you go through with this, there's no going back. I went past back the moment I found that folder, I said. Then I turned, shoulders squared, heart ironclad, ready to step into the theater Enzo thought he had staged. The night air was cool and smelled faintly of rain. My car waited like a silent accomplice. Tonight would not be the story Enzo had written. Tonight, the ending belonged to me. The house felt different when I returned to get ready, as if the walls themselves knew they were hosting a secret. The family portraits on the mantel, smiling faces frozen in time, seemed to mock me. I reached up and flipped our wedding photo face down, unable to endure Enzo's grinning certainty that love had been enough. I moved with ritual precision. The black dress, pressed and waiting, slid over my shoulders like armor. It had once been a symbol of romance. Tonight, it was my battle gear. I clasped the pearl necklace Enzo had given me on our 5th anniversary. The pearls lay cool against my skin, each one a reminder of promises broken. At the mirror, I painted my face into perfection. Foundation steadying my pale skin, mascara lengthening lashes until they framed eyes sharper than he remembered. If this was to be our last dinner together, I wanted him to look across the table and see what he had underestimated. A woman not afraid to fight. A woman who knew. As I finished, my phone buzzed on the counter. On my way. Can't wait to see you tonight, Bella. The text hit like a bruise pressed too hard. I typed back. Me too. Love you. The words left my fingers numb, but Enzo had taught me the importance of performance. If he could act, so could I. Minutes later, the door opened. Callista, he called, voice warm, carrying the scent of cologne that used to undo me. He appeared in the doorway holding a bouquet of roses, deep red, lush, decadent. For my beautiful wife, happy anniversary. I took them, arranging my features into gratitude. They're lovely, I said. His lips brushed my cheek, lingering just enough to mimic tenderness. Behind him, his eyes darted to the reflection in the glass cabinet, checking his appearance, his timing. As I filled a vase at the sink, I watched him in the window's reflection. His phone was out, thumbs moving fast. No doubt Wilma's name glowed on that screen. The corners of his mouth tugged into something colder when he thought I wasn't looking. Ready to go? He asked, pocketing the phone before I turned. As ready as I'll ever be, I answered, the words heavier than he realized. The drive to Rossetti's was a blur of city lights smeared against the windshield. The radio hummed soft jazz. Enzo's hand warm over mine on the console, his thumb stroking gentle circles like a man in love. Anyone glancing in would see a devoted couple. Only I felt the knife hidden in that gesture. You look stunning, he said, breaking the silence. That dress has always been my favorite. I smiled faintly. I wore it for you. And against you, I added silently. We pulled into the restaurant's valet circle, chandeliers spilling golden light from inside. Couples in suits and gowns glided through the revolving doors, laughter rising into the night. It was the perfect setting for celebration. Or for murder. Inside, Maria the hostess greeted us warmly. Mr. and Mrs. Wynne, welcome. Table 12, as requested. As she led us through the dining room, my eyes swept the space like a soldier mapping a battlefield. The bar gleamed to the left, the marble hallway to the restrooms just beyond. Our table sat tucked into a corner, romantic in its intimacy, yet visible from every angle. Perfect for a toast, perfect for a crime. Enzo pulled out my chair with gallant ease. "For the queen of my life," he murmured. I lowered myself onto the seat, the black dress pooling around me like shadow. My heart beat steady, not wild, not afraid, cold, focused. When Helena, the waitress, approached with menus, Enzo smiled up at her. "We'll start with a bottle of the 2018 Cabernet, the one we shared on our first date." "How romantic," I said, keeping my voice light. My nails tapped the linen tablecloth in a rhythm only I knew. Tick, tick, tick. A countdown. Helena returned with the bottle, pouring deep red liquid into crystal glasses. The ruby glow caught the light, innocent and inviting. I watched Enzo's eyes track the movement, his hunger sharpened, not for me, but for the moment he thought he had engineered. "To us," he said, lifting his glass. "To us," I echoed, touching mine to his, but letting the rim rest at my lips without drinking. The restaurant swelled with soft piano from the corner, forks clinking gently against china, muted laughter floating from nearby tables. Around us, the world continued its gentle routine. Only I knew it was theater, a curtain about to drop. Enzo's gaze lingered on me, warm, playful. "Still nervous around me after 7 years?" he teased. "Always," I said with a small laugh. He thought it was flattery. He didn't know it was prophecy. I excused myself then, pushing my chair back with calm grace. "Powder room." "Of course," he said, raising his glass again, as if to remind me what awaited. The marble hallway was cool and quiet, a tunnel of polished stone that reflected my silhouette back at me. I stopped at its edge, angled just so that I could see him without being seen. And there it was, Enzo's hand sliding into his jacket, drawing out a small silver vial. He glanced left, right, his movements smooth and practiced, then poured its contents into my glass. He stirred it gently with the silver spoon from the sugar bowl, his expression calm, as if this ritual were as routine as adding cream to coffee. My stomach twisted, but my hands remained steady. Confirmation. Proof. The plan unfolding exactly as I'd known. When he pocketed the vial and leaned back, smiling at the restaurant as though nothing had happened, I pressed my back to the cool marble and drew in one long breath. The naive wife had died the moment I opened that folder. What returned to the table would be someone else entirely. I adjusted the paper rose Gina had tucked behind my ear earlier, a talisman, a reminder. And with my heels striking the polished floor like a countdown, I walked back to face him. Enzo looked up as I returned, his smile smooth as silk, his charm rehearsed and faultless. He rose, pulling out my chair as if he hadn't just poisoned my drink in plain view. "There you are, Bella," he said warmly. I was starting to worry. "Just freshening up," I replied, lowering myself into the chair with deliberate calm. The glass of Cabernet sat before me, dark and gleaming like a pool of ink. My fingers brushed its stem lightly, feigning affection. Enzo raised his own glass, swirling the liquid with elegance. "To us, 7 wonderful years, and to the many more ahead." "To the future," I answered, lifting mine but not drinking. The words lodged in my throat, sharpened by irony. He was toasting to years I was never meant to have. Around us, the restaurant pulsed with life. A couple 2 tables over laughed too loudly, clinking their glasses with careless joy. A family at the far end of the room argued cheerfully over dessert. To them, this was an ordinary evening. To me, every sound was an echo of survival. I set my glass down without sipping. Enzo's eyes flickered, a glint of impatience barely masked by his grin. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "You look even more stunning than I remembered in that dress," he said softly, voice pitched just for me. "I swear, every year you grow more beautiful." It would have been believable if I hadn't seen his handwriting planning my last supper. I tilted my head, playing the role of the enchanted wife. "You always know what to say." My voice carried just enough warmth to keep him convinced. Helena approached with her notepad, her presence almost a relief. "Have we decided on appetizers tonight?" she asked. Enzo answered for us, the picture of an attentive husband, the bruschetta platter, and perhaps the stuffed mushrooms my wife loves. He turned to me. "Sound good, amore?" "Perfect," I said, smiling sweetly. As Helena left, Enzo reached across the table to take my hand. His thumb traced my skin, a gesture that once made me feel safe. Now it felt like a countdown. His eyes searched mine, and for a flicker of a moment, I wondered if there was a shadow of guilt in them, or if I was only seeing what I needed to. "You're quiet tonight," he said gently. I let a soft laugh escape, lowering my gaze. "Just enjoying the moment. It's not every day we celebrate 7 years." He leaned back, satisfied, sipping from his glass with ease. Watching him swallow felt like watching a wolf feed, every movement controlled, deliberate. The appetizers arrived quickly, the aroma of garlic and basil cutting through the tension. I nibbled politely, making small talk about Gina's preschool artwork and her new obsession with Cinderella. Enzo responded with practiced enthusiasm, nodding, laughing at the right times. To anyone watching, we were a perfect couple, two people deeply in love, celebrating their anniversary. But I kept glancing at the wineglass before me, its surface catching the candlelight, hiding death inside. "Not thirsty?" Enzo asked casually, gesturing toward it. I smiled, shaking my head. "Saving it for the main course. You know how I like to pair it properly." Impatience flashed across his face for half a heartbeat before he smoothed it away. "Of course," he said smoothly. "That's one of the things I love about you. Always so thoughtful." I reached across the table, brushing his hand with mine, as if grateful for his understanding. In reality, I was measuring him, watching the small tells, the tightening of his jaw, the way his eyes flicked toward my untouched glass every few minutes. He was waiting for me to drink. The piano in the corner shifted into a slower melody, soft and melancholic. Couples swayed together in conversation, laughter sprinkled through the air. It was a theater of normalcy, only I knew that the curtain was about to drop. Helena returning to take our entree orders. I chose the salmon risotto, Enzo the filet mignon. "Would you like fresh glasses for the wine?" she asked, noticing mine still full. "No," I said quickly, my smile steady. "This one is perfect." She nodded, oblivious, and drifted away. Enzo chuckled softly. "You know, I thought you'd be tipsy by now. One glass is usually enough to get you giggling." I leaned closer, lowering my voice like it was a confession. "Maybe I'm savoring it. Maybe I don't want this night to end too quickly." His eyes softened, and for a fleeting moment, I almost believed he felt something real. But then I remembered the folder, the forged documents, the cold ink of his plan. Whatever tenderness I once believed in had curdled into calculation. He lifted his glass again, sipping deeply. I mirrored the motion, lifting mine just high enough for the candlelight to reflect off the surface, before setting it down untouched. For the rest of the appetizer, we played our roles. Husband and wife, talking about vacations we would never take, dreams we would never share. Underneath the charade, my heart ticked steady, waiting for the moment when his act would begin to unravel. He excused himself with a charming laugh. "Too much coffee today," he said, pushing his chair back. "I'll be right back." As his footsteps disappeared toward the restroom, I moved quickly, my hands steady as stone. In one practice motion, I switched the glasses. His clean, mine tainted. The liquid shimmered innocently in the candlelight, unaware of the betrayal it carried. I sat back, smoothing my dress, my pulse measured and even. By the time Enzo returned, smiling and relaxed, the stage was set. Enzo slid back into his seat with the ease of a man who believed he was in control. His dark hair gleamed under the low lights, his smile practiced, confident. He reached for his glass, the one he thought was mine, and raised it in a small toast. "To the future," he said, his eyes locking with mine. "To the future," I echoed, lifting the glass that had once been meant to end me. I brushed it against my lips, pretending to sip, while he tilted his back and drank deeply. The wine slid down his throat in a slow swallow. I watched every movement, his Adam's apple bobbing, the satisfied sigh as he set the glass down. He had no idea the script had been rewritten. For a few minutes, nothing changed. He spoke animatedly about a new client at the firm, describing the complexities of a contract dispute, his voice warm and engaging. I nodded at the right moments, smiling, twirling my fork in practiced elegance. Inside, I counted beats, waiting. When the entrees arrived, I forced myself to cut into the salmon, each bite tasting like chalk. Enzo, ever the conversationalist, carried the dialogue with ease. But then, it began. A slight tremor in his left hand as he reached for his bread. Barely noticeable, but my eyes caught it instantly. He paused mid-sentence, blinked, then shook his head like he had lost his thought. "Long day," he muttered, covering it with a chuckle. "Guess I'm more tired than I thought." Maybe you should slow down on the wine, I said softly, my tone laced with concern. I reached across the table, brushing my fingertips against his wrist. My performance had to be flawless. He smiled faintly, though his eyes darted toward the glass again. You're right. I'll just finish what's here. His words slurred slightly on the last syllable. Helena passed by, her attentive eyes narrowing as she glanced at him. Everything all right here? She asked. Yes, I said smoothly, flashing her a reassuring smile. Just a bit of fatigue. Long week. Enzo waved her off with a shaky hand. I'm fine, he insisted, though his voice cracked. Minutes stretched. His movements grew less steady. He fumbled with his knife, dropping it onto the plate with a clatter. His brow furrowed in confusion as he tried to lift his fork again, his fingers stiff and clumsy. Enzo? I asked, leaning forward, playing the role of the worried wife. Are you feeling all right? He opened his mouth, but the words tangled. I don't feel... He swallowed, his face paling. Sweat beaded at his temple, catching the candlelight. Other diners began to notice. A man at a nearby table glanced over, whispering to his partner. Helena returned, concern sharpening her features. Sir? Do you need me to call someone? Enzo tried to rise, but his legs buckled. I shot to my feet, catching his arm as though saving him from collapse. In truth, I was savoring the weight of his weakness. Don't make a scene, darling, I whispered against his ear, keeping my smile wide for the spectators. Everything will be okay. His eyes widened with dawning realization. He looked from his glass to mine, then back at me. Rage and terror battled in his gaze. His lips moved, forming a single word that came out as a rasp. You. I stroked his cheek with feigned tenderness. Shh. Chaos rippled outward. The elderly couple nearby leaned in, whispering anxiously. A businessman pulled out his phone, already dialing. Helena crouched beside us, her voice urgent. Should I call an ambulance? Yes, please, I said, my voice breaking perfectly. He's having some kind of attack. Please hurry. Enzo slumped into his chair, his body failing him. His hand twitched against the tablecloth, knocking over the wine glass, crimson liquid spreading like blood across the white linen. His tongue fumbled uselessly in his mouth, his speech stolen. I knelt beside him, cradling his head against my chest, tears shimmering in my eyes for the audience. Stay with me, love. Please stay with me. Inside, I whispered words only he could hear. This is the life you chose, Enzo. Not me. You. His eyes flared with helpless fury, the only part of him still able to fight. But his body betrayed him, slack and trembling. Within minutes, the wail of sirens pierced the night outside. Restaurant staff moved patrons away, whispering apologies and explanations. Helena clutched her phone, relaying directions to the paramedics. I stayed where I was, holding his limp hand, playing the perfect wife caught in tragedy. Around us, murmurs filled the air, speculation already forming. Stroke. Seizure. Something sudden. Something cruel. The truth was mine alone. When the paramedics arrived, the restaurant was a stage of controlled panic. They loaded him onto a stretcher with efficient motions, attaching monitors, checking vitals. His eyes locked onto mine one last time before they wheeled him out, wild, trapped, pleading. I bent close to his ear, my lips brushing his temple. You wanted me gone. Instead, you're the one leaving tonight. As they carried him into the ambulance, I followed, my expression etched with fear and devotion. To the world, I was a wife desperate to save her husband. To myself, I was the woman who had finally taken back her future. The ambulance lights painted the night in violent strokes of red and blue as I climbed in beside Enzo. He lay strapped to the stretcher, his body jerking faintly under the grip of the poison he had meant for me. His eyes rolled toward me, glassy with rage, helplessness, and the faint shimmer of fear. I clutched his hand, performing the role with tears ready at the corners of my eyes. It's okay, baby, I whispered, loud enough for the paramedics to hear. You're going to be fine. One of them, a woman with a clipped tone and steady hands, glanced at me. Any history of stroke in the family? Yes, I said quickly, truth disguised as loyalty. His father died of a heart attack at 25. We've always been worried. She nodded, making a note. That tracks. She pressed a stethoscope to his chest. Pulses erratic, BP dropping. Enzo tried to move his mouth to spit out a protest, but only a guttural croak came out. I leaned closer, close enough so that only he could hear. Shh, don't waste your breath. You wrote the ending to the story yourself. He blinked furiously, his lashes wet. I thought for a moment he might cry, but no, his anger was too deep, too black. The ambulance swayed, sirens splitting the air, until we pulled up to St. Mary's Hospital. Orderlies rushed to take him inside, machines beeping as they wheeled him through wide automatic doors. I followed, heels clicking against sterile tile, my hand pressed to my chest in a pantomime of shock. In the waiting room, I made my calls. First to Luna. She answered on the second ring. Callista? It's happening, I said, keeping my voice broken, trembling. We're at St. Mary's. They think it's a stroke. Oh my God, she whispered. Are you okay? I'm fine, I lied smoothly. Just get here as soon as you can. Next, I called Roberto, Enzo's older brother. He picked up gruffly. What's wrong? It's Enzo, I said, letting tears color my words. We were at dinner, and he just collapsed. The doctors think it's a stroke. Silence, then a sharp inhale. Which hospital? St. Mary's, please hurry. I'm on my way. The last call was the hardest. Elena, Enzo's mother, the woman who had never forgiven him for marrying me. When she answered, her voice was clipped. Callista? It's Enzo, I said. He had some kind of attack. They think it's a stroke. We're at St. Mary's. Her silence was a knife. Then, I'll be on the next flight from Phoenix. Don't let them make any major decisions until I get there. Of course not, I said dutifully, though my teeth ground at the command. When I hung up, I sat in the hard plastic chair, my hands clasped together in trembling prayer. Around me, strangers murmured, vending machines hummed, the TV on the wall droned the evening news. I was just another wife waiting for news of her husband. Dr. Wong, a neurologist with calm eyes behind wire glasses, appeared after what felt like hours. Mrs. Wynne? I rose quickly. Yes, how is he? She gestured toward a private corner. Your husband has suffered what appears to be a massive ischemic stroke. There's been significant damage to the left side of his brain, affecting motor functions and speech centers. I let my knees weaken, clutching the arm of the nearest chair for support. Is he going to... Will he... He should survive, she said carefully, but the prognosis is grim. He may never walk again. His speech will be impaired. He will need around-the-clock care. I lowered my face into my hands, shoulders shaking, the perfect picture of despair. Inside, a cold satisfaction pulsed steady and quiet. Enzo was alive, yes, but alive inside a prison of his own design. Roberto arrived in a rush, smelling of motorcycle exhaust, his leather jacket creaking as he embraced me. What the hell happened? We were at Rossetti's, I said, keeping my voice uneven. Everything was fine, and then he just collapsed. He couldn't speak. His hand was shaking. I don't know. Roberto swore under his breath, pacing, dragging a hand through his hair. Jesus, he's only 35. This doesn't just happen. I shook my head helplessly. The doctor said it does. Sometimes it just happens. Luna arrived next, her presence a balm. She hugged me tightly, her whisper warm against my ear. You're safe. I nodded against her shoulder, fighting back the surge of emotion. Safe, for now. Hours later, they allowed me into Enzo's ICU room. Machines beeped steadily. Tubes snaked from his body, monitors blinking with his vitals. His face, once animated and handsome, looked slack and gray, the life drained from it. I sat beside him, taking his limp hand in mine. Nurses bustled quietly around us, but I leaned closer, whispering where only he could hear. I found the papers, Enzo, the forged will, the emails to Wilma, the note about tonight. His eyelids fluttered. A tear slipped from the corner of his eye. His heart monitor beeped faster. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? I whispered. Did you think I was that blind? Another tear slid down, rage shimmering behind his gaze. I smoothed his blanket with gentle hands, the image of devotion. As far as the world knows, this was a tragic accident, a stroke at dinner, nothing more. I paused, letting my words pierce him. But you and I, we know better. I stood, brushing my lips across his clammy forehead. Sweet dreams, Enzo. Welcome to your new life. Behind me, machines hummed, steady and unrelenting. His prison had no bars, only wires and silence. And for the first time in months, I walked away feeling lighter. The days that followed blurred into a strange theater of grief and relief. To the world, I was the devoted wife keeping vigil at my husband's bedside. To myself, I was savoring the twisted irony of his condition. Enzo had wanted me gone, buried, forgotten, replaced. Instead, he lay trapped in a body that no longer obeyed him, while I moved through the hospital corridors, rehearsing tears that came easier than expected. Roberto rarely left the ICU. He sat hunched in a chair, his rugged hands curled into fists, watching his brother with the protective rage of a man who had never learned how to be helpless. "He doesn't deserve this," he muttered one night, staring at the monitors. I pressed my hand to my lips, willing my voice to wobble. "No one does." But Elena thought differently. She arrived from Phoenix in a storm of black suits and sharper words. At 68, she still carried herself like a queen, silver hair pinned neatly, lips painted with disdain. When she saw me in the waiting room, her eyes blazed. "This is your fault," she hissed, voice cutting through the hushed hallway. "My son was strong until you leached the life out of him." Luna stepped between us before I could answer. "That's unfair. Callista isn't responsible." "Unfair?" Elena snapped. 7 years married to her, and now he collapses like an old man. Don't tell me it's coincidence. I lowered my gaze, tears dripping into my lap, the picture of wounded innocence. "I loved him," I whispered. "I still do." Her scoff was cruel. "Love doesn't weaken a man like this. Parasites do." She swept past us toward the ICU. Roberto shot me an apologetic look, but said nothing. I let the sting of her words settle. They were useful. Her hatred made my performance easier. 3 weeks later, I sat across from my lawyer, pen in hand, signing the divorce papers. Gertrude Holbrook was a sharp woman in her 50s, all steel-rimmed glasses and precise diction. "Given your husband's condition, this should be uncontested," she said. "You'll retain your inheritance, the house, and sole custody of your daughter." I signed with steady hands. "That's all I want, a fresh start." Gertrude studied me, her gaze softer than her voice. "You've been through a trauma, Mrs. Wynne. Don't downplay that. You're not responsible for his medical expenses. Focus on your daughter's future." I nodded, but inside another storm brewed, because my fresh start was already under threat. It began with a phone call. "Mrs. Wynne," the voice was smooth, female, unfamiliar, yet dangerous. "This is Wilma Leonardo." My chest tightened. "I'm sorry, who?" "You know who," she said. "I was close to your husband. I heard about his accident. I want to express my condolences." Her calmness was chilling. I forced politeness. "That's kind of you, but I'm not sure Enzo ever mentioned you." A pause. Then lightly. "He did, often. And I know what happened at Rossetti's. You switched the glasses." The blood drained from my face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't insult me," she said, her voice sharp now. "I was there that night. I saw you. I even have photographs." My fingers clenched around the phone. "What do you want?" She didn't hesitate. "Half. 1.5 million. That inheritance was supposed to be ours." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. "You're insane." "Maybe. But if you don't pay, I'll go to the police with what I have. Attempted murder doesn't look good in court, even if he started it." I sank into the kitchen chair, the world spinning. Gina's laughter floated from the living room, innocent and unknowing. I pressed my free hand against my mouth to keep from sobbing. "Think about it," Wilma said coolly. "I'll be in touch." The line went dead. I sat there, staring at the manila folder, still hidden in the drawer, the one with every piece of evidence of Enzo's betrayal. Proof of his crimes. Proof of his plan. But none of it could protect me now. Not from Wilma's photographs, not from the threat of exposure. For the first time since that night at Rossetti's, I felt truly cornered again. And the cruelest part? Enzo wasn't the only monster I had to survive. The week that followed was a blur of dread and paranoia. Every buzz of my phone sent shivers through me. Every shadow outside my Portland home looked like someone watching. I moved through the motions of motherhood, packing Gina's lunches, reading bedtime stories, braiding her curls, but my mind was elsewhere, counting the hours until Wilma's next move. It came on a gray Tuesday in the form of a text message. Pioneer Courthouse Square. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. Come alone. I stared at the words until they blurred. Wilma wasn't bluffing. She wanted to see me squirm. The next day, I left Gina with Luna under the pretense of an afternoon errand and drove downtown. The square buzzed with its usual life. Tourists snapping photos, buskers strumming guitars, office workers on lunch break. I chose a bench near the fountain, my heart pounding so hard I thought the whole plaza could hear it. At exactly 3 o'clock, someone sat down beside me. I turned, and there she was, Wilma Leonardo. She wasn't the femme fatale I had imagined. She looked ordinary, brown hair in a tight ponytail, tired eyes behind expensive glasses, a tailored blazer that didn't quite hide the bitterness clinging to her like smoke. But her voice was sharp when she spoke. "Hello, Callista." I swallowed. "I don't know who you think." "I'm the woman who loved your husband," she interrupted, eyes narrowing, "and the woman who knows you switched those glasses." My blood turned to ice. "You're lying." Wilma smirked. She pulled an envelope from her purse and slid it onto the bench between us. Inside were photographs. Grainy, distant, but damning. Me leaving the table, me standing in the marble hallway, me returning and switching the glasses while Enzo was in the restroom. My stomach lurched. "How did you—" "I was there that night," she said simply. "I couldn't stay away. I wanted to see him one last time before we carried out the plan." Her words twisted my insides. "The plan?" She leaned closer, her breath warm and bitter. "Yes, Callista. It was my idea. Enzo was too soft. He felt guilty. He needed convincing. I gave him that push. I told him your money was the way out, that once you were gone, we could be free." The square seemed to tilt beneath me. This plain woman, with her clipped words and flat expression, had orchestrated the nightmare of my life. "Why?" I whispered. Her eyes hardened. "Because I was done being the mistress, done sneaking around, done taking crumbs. Your inheritance was supposed to be ours. $3 million, Callista. A new life without you or Gina in the way." I felt sick. "And now?" "Now," she said coldly, "you give me half, 1.5 million, or these photographs go to the police. They'll believe me. You had motive, you had opportunity, and I have proof." I tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. "You think anyone will believe the mistress over the grieving wife?" Her smirk widened. "Do you want to take that chance? Imagine the trial. Imagine losing Gina." Her words cut deeper than any blade. My daughter, my entire reason for breathing, used as leverage. I clenched my fists until my nails bit my palms. "You won't get away with this." "I already have," she said, rising. "1 week, Callista. Bring the money or you lose everything." She walked away, her heels striking the pavement like a judge's gavel. I sat frozen, the envelope of photographs burning in my hands, the noise of the square swirling into a distant roar. For the first time since I switched those glasses, I wasn't sure if I had truly won, because Wilma had just reminded me of a brutal truth. Some monsters don't die when you beat them. They linger, they wait, and then they strike again. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every gust of wind against the window sounded like footsteps. By dawn, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the photographs Wilma had left me. Grainy or not, they told a story no jury would ignore, a wife who had switched wine glasses, condemning her husband. By breakfast, Gina's chatter was the only thing holding me together. "Mommy, can I have extra strawberries?" she asked, swinging her legs beneath the chair. "Of course," I said, sliding the bowl toward her with trembling hands. She didn't notice. To her, the world was still safe, still simple. I envied her more than words could say. At noon, Luna came by. The lavender scent of her perfume filled the kitchen, her presence grounding me. But one look at my face and her smile faltered. "What happened?" she asked, dropping her purse. I slid the envelope across the table. She opened it, flipped through the photographs, and froze. "Oh my God." "She was there," I whispered. "Wilma, she saw everything. She says it was her idea all along. She's blackmailing me." Luna's face paled. "What does she want?" "Half of the inheritance, 1.5 million. My voice cracked. "Or she goes to the police." Luna pressed her fingers to her temples, pacing the length of the kitchen. "This is insane. We should go to the police ourselves. Tell them everything, that Enzo planned to kill you, that Wilma was part of it. Make you the victim." "With what evidence?" I snapped. "The documents are circumstantial at best. Enzo can't testify. And she has photos, Luna. Photos of me switching those glasses. They won't care about context. They'll see guilt." Luna stopped pacing, her eyes glassy. "Then what do we do? Just give her the money?" The kitchen filled with silence, broken only by the sound of Gina humming in the living room as she built towers of blocks. Her innocence made the air heavier. Finally, Luna spoke, her voice low. "There's another option. Someone like her. She won't stop until you make her stop." I stared at her, horrified. "You mean—" "I don't mean anything," she said quickly, looking away. "But you have to think about Gina. Do you want her life to be dictated by this woman's greed? Do you want to live in fear forever?" I clenched my fists so tightly my nails cut into my skin. "No, but I can't become a murderer, Luna. I already danced too close to that line." She looked at me then, eyes full of sympathy and fear. So we find another way. We outsmart her, just like you outsmarted Enzo. Her words stuck with me. Outthink, outsmart, outlast. The next few days passed in a haze of planning and dread. I contacted banks, liquidating what I could without drawing suspicion. I managed to scrape together $750,000, half of what she demanded. It felt like ripping pieces of myself away, but at least it bought me time. On the 6th day, I met her again at Pioneer Courthouse Square. She was waiting, her ordinary face twisted by smugness. But this time, she wasn't alone. A tall man in an expensive suit stood beside her. My stomach plummeted when I recognized him. Thomas Mitchell, one of Enzo's senior partners at the law firm. "Mrs. Wynne," he said smoothly, his smile like a knife. "What a surprise." I forced myself to stand tall. "Mr. Mitchell." Wilma's eyes gleamed. "Thomas is helping me handle this little arrangement. He has legal expertise." Thomas stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "Here's how this works. The full $3 million. Not half, not delayed. All of it. Or the photographs and your freedom vanish together." My pulse thundered in my ears. "That's impossible. I don't have that kind of liquid cash." "You'll find a way," Wilma said sweetly. "You've always been resourceful." Thomas slipped a card into my hand, numbers scrawled across the back. 24 hours. Transfer the money to these accounts, or we go straight to the police. Wilma leaned close, her breath hot against my ear. "And don't think about running. We'll find you." They walked away together, leaving me standing alone in the square, the business card burning in my palm like a brand. It hit me then, with bone-deep clarity. I wasn't just fighting Enzo's ghost anymore. I was standing against a conspiracy bigger than I had imagined. And if I didn't find a way to turn the tables again, Gina and I would lose everything. That night, I sat at the kitchen table long after Gina had fallen asleep. The house was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. The business card Thomas Mitchell had slipped me lay flat on the table, its neat numbers burning holes into my mind. $3 million, my inheritance, my safety net, my daughter's future. If I wired it, they would own me. If I didn't, they would destroy me. I poured myself a glass of wine and didn't drink it, staring instead at the red swirl as if it held an answer. It was too much like that night at Rossetti's, an innocent drink hiding death inside. Only this time, the poison wasn't in the glass. It was sitting across from me in the form of a choice. Luna came over the next morning, finding me still in my robe, the card clutched in my hand. She read it once, twice, then set it down carefully. "So they've escalated. $3 million, all of it." "Yes," I whispered. My voice was raw, like it belonged to someone else. "Then we can't pay," she said firmly. "Even if you did, they'd come back for more. They're not the type to stop." I rubbed my temples, exhaustion clawing at me. "So what? I fight them? Go to the police? With what? Their word against mine? And those photographs?" Luna sat across from me, taking my hands in hers. "You've already proven you can turn a trap inside out. You did it with Enzo. You can do it again." Her faith was a lifeline. I clung to it. So I called Jordan Torres, the insurance investigator, the man who had once circled too close to the truth, but who had left with doubts unresolved. He owed me nothing, but he owed the truth something. When he arrived that evening, his suit was rumpled, his eyes sharp behind fatigue. "You said it was urgent." I slid an envelope across the table. Bank statements, forged documents, printed emails between Enzo and Wilma. "This is what you missed," I said. Proof of what Enzo and Wilma were planning. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. He flipped through the papers, his brows furrowing. "Why now?" "Because they're still coming for me," I said. My voice broke, this time not from performance, but from sheer exhaustion. "Wilma, and now Thomas Mitchell. They want my inheritance. They're threatening to expose me with photographs that make me look guilty." Jordan studied me for a long time. His silence was heavy, almost unbearable. Finally, he exhaled. "You're not telling me everything." I met his gaze head-on. "No, but I'm telling you enough. Help me, and you'll get the rest." He tapped the papers against the table, thinking. "Mitchell's dirty. I've heard rumors about his dealings for years. If he's tied up with Wilma, that means leverage, and leverage means they're not untouchable." Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in days. The next 24 hours were a blur of preparation. Jordan dug into Mitchell's finances while Luna helped me rehearse every possible scenario. I knew Wilma and Thomas wouldn't give me more than one chance. At noon, they arrived at my house as agreed. Wilma's smugness was palpable, her heels clicking against the hardwood like a metronome of doom. Thomas carried a briefcase, his expression colder than steel. "Do you have the money?" he asked. I gestured to my laptop on the coffee table. "It's ready, but I want confirmation before I send it." He leaned forward, scanning the transfer screen. Wilma smirked, folding her arms. "Smart. Don't worry, we'll make sure it all goes smoothly." That was when I pressed the small button on my phone. A faint beep confirmed what only I knew. The recorder hidden behind the picture frame above the fireplace was live. "Funny thing about smooth," I said, my voice steady now. "It rarely stays that way." Thomas looked up sharply. "What are you playing at?" I stood, moving to the mantel. From behind the photograph, I pulled the second piece of my plan. Photographs, bank records, signed affidavits Jordan had uncovered overnight. "What I'm playing at," I said, tossing the papers onto the table, "is the truth. About your embezzlement, Thomas. About your extortion, Wilma. About your plan to help Enzo eliminate me." Their faces drained of color. "You're bluffing," Thomas snapped. "Am I?" I said calmly, sliding more evidence across the table. Documents linking him to offshore accounts, to missing client funds. "The FBI will be very interested in this trail." Wilma's lips parted in shock, her eyes darting between Thomas and me. "You told me—" "Shut up," he barked. "No," I cut in sharply. "Don't shut up. Keep talking. This entire conversation is being recorded." I pointed to the mantel. Every word, every threat. For a moment, the room was silent except for the ticking of the clock. Then Wilma's composure cracked. She pulled the envelope of photographs from her bag and threw them onto the floor. "Fine, take them. Just leave me out of this." But Thomas wasn't so quick to fold. He stood, looming over me. "You think this ends with some papers and a recording?" "Yes," I said softly, stepping back toward the door. "Because unlike you, I know when a game is lost." Luna appeared in the doorway then, her phone in hand. "The police are already on their way," she said firmly. Thomas cursed under his breath. Wilma slumped into the chair, pale and shaking. It was over. By the time the officers arrived, the evidence was ready, the recordings secure, the photographs destroyed. Thomas was taken away in handcuffs. Wilma, trembling, begged for leniency. I gave none. Later that night, after the house was quiet again, I sat on the porch with Luna, watching Gina chase fireflies in the yard. For the first time in what felt like forever, the air felt light, breathable. "Do you feel safe now?" Luna asked softly. I watched my daughter laugh, her small hands reaching for the glowing insects. "Safer than I have in years," I said. "But safety isn't given. It's chosen. And I'll choose it for her every single time." The fireflies blinked in the dark, tiny beacons of hope. For once, I let myself believe them. The trial came quicker than I expected. With Jordan's evidence and the recordings from my living room, the case against Thomas Mitchell was airtight. Embezzlement, wire fraud, extortion. He tried to bluff in court, but the jury didn't buy it. 5 years in federal prison. That was his sentence. Watching the judge hammer down the gavel, I felt a grim satisfaction ripple through me. Wilma was different. She crumbled under pressure, turning on Thomas to save herself. Her confession spilled out in a torrent. Her affair with Enzo, their plan to take my inheritance, the photographs she had used to blackmail me. In the end, she got probation for cooperation. Too light, if you ask me. But her punishment wasn't mine to give. Life had already stripped her of the illusions she clung to. And Enzo, his fate was crueler than any verdict. Weeks after the trial, I visited him in the long-term care facility. The walls smelled of antiseptic and resignation. Machines beeped in dull rhythm. He sat in his chair by the window, head tilted, eyes staring at the garden outside. His body remained twisted, his speech limited to slurred syllables. He couldn't feed himself, couldn't dress himself, couldn't plot or scheme or betray. When I stepped into the room, his gaze shifted. Recognition sparked faintly in his dark eyes, followed quickly by rage. His lips parted, fumbling over broken sounds. "K. "Yes, it's me," I said softly, drawing the chair closer. I laid out drawings Gina had made, stick figures of us holding hands under a sun. "She's growing so fast. She misses you." His hand twitched violently against the armrest. A guttural groan escaped his throat, half sob, half scream. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so no nurse could hear. You wanted me gone. Instead, you lost everything. Your mistress betrayed you. Your partner rots in prison. Your mother blames me. And you sit here locked in your own body. His tears slid silently down his cheeks. I almost pitied him. Almost. Don't worry, I whispered. I'll make sure Gina remembers the good parts. She'll know her father loved her, even if he didn't know how to love me. I stood and kissed his forehead, the gesture so gentle that any onlooker would think I was a saint of a wife. Then I left, his broken sobs echoing behind me. Back in Portland, life finally began to heal. Gina thrived at school, making friends and filling the house with laughter. Luna's therapy practice grew quickly, and she started seeing a kind pediatrician named David who adored her calm strength. Our lives were no longer haunted by the shadow of Enzo's betrayal. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching Gina chase fireflies, Luna handed me a glass of wine. The sky burned with the soft glow of twilight. You look lighter, she said. Because I am, I replied. For the first time in years, I can breathe. We clinked our glasses together. Fireflies blinked around us like scattered stars, and Gina's giggles carried on the wind. For months, I'd lived waiting for the next blow, the next secret, the next betrayal. But now, standing here with my daughter, safe and my sister beside me, I realized the war was over, and I had won. Years later, the memories of that night at Rossetti's still come to me, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the quiet moments when the world slows down. The clink of a wine glass, the flicker of candlelight, the weight of my husband's eyes as he raised a poisoned toast. Those fragments linger like shards of glass embedded under the skin, but they no longer cut the way they once did. By then, Gina was 9 years old, bright, curious, and fiercely independent. She had inherited Enzo's dark eyes, but thankfully, none of his shadows. She was thriving, top of her class, always drawing, always asking questions about the world. Questions I tried to answer with honesty, even when they hurt. Mom, she asked me once as we drove home from school, why don't we see Daddy? I gripped the wheel tighter. Daddy's very sick, sweetheart. The doctors take care of him now. It's better this way. She nodded, quiet for a moment, then said, Then I'll just draw him happy pictures. Maybe that will help. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I forced a smile. I think he'd like that. Luna married David in a small ceremony in the Portland Rose Gardens. I was her maid of honor, Gina, the flower girl, scattering petals down the aisle. As I watched my sister walk toward a future filled with love and trust, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, peace. Even Elena, Enzo's mother, eventually stopped calling. At first, her rage had been endless, blaming me for everything, but over time, even her fury burned out. Distance and silence did what no argument ever could. We drifted into strangers, bound only by the memory of a man neither of us could save. Enzo himself faded too. The facility updates grew shorter. His condition plateaued, paralyzed, speech slurred, dependent on nurses for every need. Alive, but no longer living. Sometimes I wondered if that was its own kind of mercy. On my porch, on quiet summer nights, I'd sip wine and watch Gina chase fireflies through the yard. The tiny glowing orbs danced like fragments of another world, here for only a fleeting moment before vanishing into the dark. I thought about how fragile life was, how easily it could be poisoned or stolen or betrayed. But I also thought about survival, about the strength it took to look into the eyes of betrayal and still choose to live. People might say what I did was wrong, that I should have gone to the police, trusted the system, played the dutiful victim. But those people never watched their husband pour poison into their glass. They never discovered their life had been written off, like a line item in a balance sheet. They never had to choose between being prey or becoming a predator. I chose survival, for myself, for Gina, and I would make that choice again, without hesitation. As fireflies blinked across the dark lawn, Gina ran toward me, her arms wide, laughter spilling into the night. I caught her, held her close, breathed in the strawberry scent of her hair. She was the reason I had fought, the reason I had endured, the reason I had become someone I never thought I could be. And in that embrace, in the fragile glow of fireflies and the promise of tomorrow, I knew the truth. The past was over, the poison, the betrayals, the blackmail, They belonged to another life. This life was mine.